I'm going to call to order the 2,452nd meeting of the Darien Police Commission. Second order of business, acceptance of the minutes of March 9th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any additions, subtractions, comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Chief, correspondence, it's a long list.
Well, Susan Schultz, late of the Darien Times, provided us with a traditional St. Patrick's Day meal yet again. Corned beef and cabbage and soda bread, and I forget what else was in there, but a thank you note was sent to her. The actual corned beef part of the extravaganza was donated by Palmer Supermarket, so they also got a thank you note on behalf of the members of the department for taking care of us on St. Patty's Day. Also on St. Patty's Day, we were well fed. We had cookies and gift bags delivered by a resident. They also received a thank you note. This is kind of two different parts of the agenda, but I think I'll cover it once here. We got a email from a attendee of the Citizens Police Academy complimenting the entire program. I think the email is in your packet.
I have seen the email, it's not in my packet.
That was from Christopher Nolan, and complimenting especially Kate Giolino, who kind of oversaw the Citizens Police Academy. So
Excellent.
we'll circle back that to later in the agenda, but thank you for that thank you note. The Citizens Police Academy went very well. Everyone that attended it thought it was a fabulous time. They learned a lot. I think there was a lot of eye-opening from the members there of what the police department does, what we don't do, why we do it, and why we don't. So I think it would behoove us, since we had to turn some folks away, that maybe have another one of them in the fall. I think that's what we're working towards.
I did attend a couple of them. I'll tell you, Kate, I thought did a phenomenal job leading many of the sessions, and all the officers that presented really did a really nice job
And
answering questions as well.
I sent them each a thank you note to put in their personnel files as well, so much appreciated. And last but not least, on correspondence, thank you note was sent. We had donuts dropped off by the So Fresh Donut Company. As I often comment, we don't eat a lot of donuts, although we get that we get that reputation. But they were
consumed. I assumed that they were.
So thank you to everyone who took care of us over the last month with food.
Excellent. All good. Okay, Captain Department activity.
Yes, this is from March 9th through yesterday, April 5th. On March 9th, between 5:15 and 6 p.m., a wallet was stolen from a customer's shopping cart at Trader Joe's. Credit cards were then used to make several $100s worth of purchases at Walmart in Norwalk. Resident at 235 Hollow Tree Ridge Road reported on March 10th that two lamps near the entrance of her driveway were vandalized. On March 22nd, several homeowners in various areas of town reported that their houses were egged. March 25th, it was reported that sometime during the overnight that used cooking grease was stolen from a Post Road restaurant. On March 28th, a theft of 4 copper downspouts from a Contempt Island Road home was reported. On March 28th, members of the police dive team assisted Public Works with the underwater repair of the floodgate at Rings End Bridge. On April 4th, a 25-year-old Port Chester, New York woman was arrested by warrant stemming from a single-car motor vehicle accident she was involved in on January 22nd during the early morning hours that seriously injured her and her passenger. She was charged with DWI, risk of injury to a minor, reckless operation, assault second degree with a motor vehicle, reckless endangerment, operating under the influence with a child passenger, and interfering with an officer. On April 4th, a 44-year-old White Plains, New York man was arrested by warrant for several motor vehicle and narcotics charges stemming from an accident he caused in April of 2021, in which he fled the scene. We had 1 recent DWI arrest, 3 domestic disturbance incidents, all of which involved arrests, 3 incidents of check mail theft or fraud, and 2 residential burglaries. We had 2 stolen cars that were unlocked with the keys in it, 1 stolen car that was unlocked but the keys were not in it, 3 overnight burglaries of unlocked cars, and 1 forced entry burglary of a locked car. We had 21 motor vehicle accidents, 2 involving minor injuries. Our patrol division made 261 traffic stops, And over the past month, the midnight shift had 4 instances in which officers attempted to stop vehicles for various reasons, and the vehicles refused to stop and fled the area. In 3 of the 4 incidents, it was determined that the suspect vehicles were stolen.
Okay. Well, we have public comment. We have people from the public here. I'm happy to take comment now or do it at the time of the agenda item. Do you care?
Either way.
Members of the public, if you see your issue is on the agenda, I'm happy to take your comment then. If it's something else,
We represent Y.
okay. So,
I'm a resident, but it's related, so.
all right, so why don't we go,
Yeah.
all right, anybody else? Okay, old business, building issues update.
You want me to take it?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. Female locker room is moving ahead. We were approved to order lockers and to have the architect come in and start design work. So we are just waiting for purchase orders at this point, but we're moving ahead. So that's update on the locker room. New security camera installation, those are complete. We just have to do some minor tweaking, and they should be up and running in the next couple weeks.
Security cameras in the building?
In the building, yes.
That was ARPA funding. So we gave an update to the town hall. They were looking on our ARPA funding projects. That and the UAV, AKA the drone program, were the 2 ARPA funded. Both we should be able to close out the financial aspects of that probably in the next month on both of them. It's fully
Chief, just
complete.
remind me what the issue was. There were a couple of cameras that were either broken or out of date, and we needed to replace them.
That and the fact that we didn't have full coverage of the building internally and externally. So this is a quantum leap
Additional.
forward into the 21st century, is having proper surveillance around our physical plant. Great.
Excellent, okay. Traffic issues,
So the hidden driveway, 79 West Ave, that's taken care of. Talked to her offline, and if anything needs to happen in the future, she'll contact me, but we're good on that.
okay. Do we have a sign there?
No.
You're-
Hidden driveway signs.
Sorry.
Good save. Because of our topographical, geographical type makeup here,
Every driveway.
every driveway on almost every street, because the way it's set up, it's kind of like the deer crossing sign. We do get requests for deer crossing signs on a regular basis. Not frequently, but that is basically a limited access highway treatment sign, because deer cross everywhere in the 06820, right? We would have to put a deer crossing on virtually every street, so that's why you don't see them. Hidden driveways, same kind of thing. There might be something we'd be able to do on West Avenue on that curve, but the hidden driveway may not be the right
Got it.
signage
All right.
treatment there.
As long as Ally's got it.
She's on it.
Excellent. Okay, crosswalk near the YMCA. We have people here that want to comment. You want to take the floor first?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want
Awesome.
to stay here, or do you want to go anywhere else?
You
Over
can,
there?
I don't- Talk to our cameraman.
TV. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay here. I'll stay here.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting us. My name is Karen Ford, and I'm the development director at the YMCA, just down the road. I have been here for 3 years as the development director, and joining me today is our VP of Operations, Tanya Stack, and a local community member and member of our YMCA, Carrie Gomaka. So I don't know if I was going to say that right. So in my 3 years here, I've heard many of our members talk about the crosswalk outside, or talk about the bus stop outside, and the need for there should be a crosswalk there. We also partner with Ableist. We've had several of our interns who do take the bus to and from work and cross that street. The Post Road is a very dangerous street. We also have several of our staff members who take that bus. So we know that it's a very dangerous crossing. There is a bus stop there. Our partnership with Ableist will continue to grow and expand to include the 11 residents down on Elm Lane, and they will all be taking public transportation to come to our building. So we're very interested in having further discussion about a crosswalk at that bus stop. But in further conversation with Tanya and then Carrie coming on board, we kind of found out that it's a much bigger issue than just the Y wanting a crosswalk. It's about all the residents who live on that other side of Post Road looking to get access to cross the Post Road down in that area. So versus going all the way up to Hindley School, crossing there and coming back down. That's a half-mile walk, I believe. So for our seniors and our people with developmental disabilities, that's a long way to go out of their way to come over to the YMCA, and then for neighbors to come across, whether they're coming to the Y or going to visit other friends and colleagues across that Post Road. We have not yet surveyed our membership about the possibility. We've heard enough comments in the building, but we're going to take it another step further. We just sent a survey out, so we couldn't duplicate kind of that survey option just at this point. But we met together with Carrie, and Carrie but she's very passionate about just access across that Post Road for residents and sending her children to the Y and others. And so Carrie was able to, just within a couple of days' time, reach out to local residents in the area, and we can share.
Just briefly before we get there, do you know approximately, not that you're going to know this for a fact, how many people cross there on a daily basis? Or maybe weekends it's higher as well?
Yeah, we don't know the numbers. We haven't gotten to the point where we're going to sit somebody out there and count, but we could certainly do that as one of our next steps, to have a volunteer out there doing that, seeing who's coming off. It's just been conversations in the Y, primarily with seniors, primarily with our ableist residents, and some and staff, and some families who are walking across with children in strollers. So that's.
I think one of the questions would also be, we could probably count members that use it for the purpose of the Y, but I think the larger conversation is, it's not just about obviously access to the Y, it's about access in the community. So like I'm a resident of Darien, I happen to live on Middlesex, and I think it's about being able to cross, whether it's, Hollow Tree, Gardner, whatever those areas are, where there are bus stops in several locations right there. So there happen to be bus stops. So we probably could determine how many members and our staff, but if we wanted a larger community picture, obviously I think it would probably take a little bit more data to try and figure out, well, who are all the other people that aren't necessarily crossing for access to the YMCA directly?
So if I could just jump in here, I live on Saltbox Lane, and I polled all of my neighbors as well as a few people I know who live on various sides of the Post Road and the stretch between where the two lights are near water and all the way down to Wheat Avenue. And I'd like to hand this out. I only have 4 copies. I wasn't sure how many people we were going to be talking with, so if you don't mind.
We can share.
We're very good at sharing, yes,
I'll
we're
just
good.
sort of spread this out. And I have a statement that I prepared here to just provide context. Tanya and I were talking, and I said, this is an issue. This is great that you're interested in this. This is something that's been on my mind as a resident for some time. And so I'll just read the statement because I think it summarizes pretty clearly my thoughts on this. I'm writing to request that the Legal Traffic Authority in Darien commence a study to consider the addition of an additional pedestrian crossing on the Post Road in Darien between Nearwater Lane and Weed Avenue in Stanford. When we moved to town in 2020, we specifically desired to live in this area because of the walkability to schools, friends, retail, restaurants, and church. One of our greatest frustrations has been that the location of our street is such that there's not an easy nearby means of facilitating safe crossing of the Post Road for pedestrians. Given the amount of traffic and how frequently drivers speed on this stretch of road, I am always nervous about crossing here, but neither is it always feasible to walk the half-mile up to Nearwater just to walk another half-mile back. As a member of the YMCA, instead of being able to easily cross the street and walk a block, I end up driving every time, which adds to the congestion on our streets and ends up being an inconvenience. It also limits my children's ability to form healthy habits. I have a 14-year-old son who would like to work out or play basketball with his friends after school. Instead of being able to give him his much desired independence, the extra 1.4-mile trip to safely cross at Nearwater Lane to go to the YMCA often deters him, and he sits at home on his devices unless I can interrupt my workday to drive him. Similarly, my children have many friends from Hindley School that live on streets directly across from us on Post Road. For example, Seagate, Lighthouse, Beach Drive. I'm not easily able to facilitate playdates for them where they could learn to gain independence by walking to or from each other's houses. One of the reasons we moved to this neighborhood to begin with. The stretch of Post Road creates an arbitrary division in our town where there should not be one. After-school playdates, for example, may only be feasible with other families based on north side or south side neighborhood affiliations if parents are working or can't stop in the middle of the day to drive their kids across the street. Finally, I also have friends who employ people to take the bus that stops at Gardner Street. The location of that bus stop means that no matter which direction they come from, they are either faced with walking 1.2 miles round trip to the Weed Avenue crosswalk, or they risk running across Post Road and hoping for the best. It came to my attention recently that people with disabilities serviced through Ableist at the YMCA are faced with this decision daily, which seems seriously problematic. For all of the above reasons, I strongly encourage you to evaluate possible solutions to provide a pedestrian crossing, some options somewhere in the middle of the stretch between Weed Ave and near Water Lane. The primary goal in my mind would be to make it easy for people to cross and access the YMCA from the north side neighborhoods. This would also provide a reasonable option for Post Road crossings that facilitate increased walkability for families seeking to walk dogs, visit friends, etc. on both sides of the street. I would imagine it also provides a welcome way for families on the south side of the street to walk to Norotan Heights train station and the new retail shopping being developed in that neighborhood. As part of your investigation, we would also hope that you are simultaneously able to find a solution that addresses the significant traffic and speeding problems experienced in this stretch of road. Thank you for your consideration. I sent this survey around, again, it was to the residents of Saltbox Lane, because we have an email chain, but then also a few other nearby streets. I had 19 people respond to it, and 100% find that this stretch of road is problematic. I only sent it out last week. It was very informal. I'm sure that we could, do a wider survey, but I think even this initial survey suggests that this is something that people feel pretty strongly about, and would really appreciate if you could look into. There's quotes from some of the people who submitted the survey, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Again, it all started with just conversations in our why, and then uncovering that Terry was very much interested in pursuing it. So we quickly formed together, quickly had a discussion to present here at your commission.
Regarding speeding, I know that dynamic speed signs were installed in the area down there, correct?
That's correct.
That's one. Two, in your opinion, not looking for anything fact-based here right now, but there's a clear line of sight, I think, going both ways on the Post Road there. It's a state road, which we know is problematic to get something like this put in. Would there be a false sense of security, particularly with kids without a traffic light there, potentially, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you always have the aspect of potential false sense of security. I will certainly support the fact that it's tough to cross the Post Road. Right? It is once you make the decision to go, you have to go. And you really, and there's some members of the public that perhaps can't get across the Post Road that fast. Over the years, there have been repeated requests for a traffic light somewhere in that stretch, whether it be at Hollow Tree Ridge Road and the state, they do a study and it's just not, the state will not put a traffic light in there simply to meter traffic. And that's their typical finding. That's what really people want. They want it to meter traffic, to slow people down, to make them have to stop at some point. That would be, from a pedestrian perspective, that would be ideal.
Right.
You push the button, you get your exclusive pedestrian phase when somebody's there to want to cross, and you cross the street. That is an undertaking that is multi-million dollars in funds that the state would probably say they didn't have. And we can go back in our records.
That we have no influence over.
We have a little bit of influence, but we can't shake their pockets loose to make sure that the gold comes out to get that done. As far as a crosswalk, I'm not 100% certain in my time whether a crosswalk was requested from the state DOT anywhere in that stretch. That would be the first thing that we would have to do at this point, to go back to our records to see if a crosswalk was ever proposed by the YMCA. I don't know for sure. There's just so many different projects or that are requested and or discussed over the last, 25, 30 years.
And can I
that could have been
just
discussed
ask for
already.
clarification? When we're saying a crosswalk, it's not lights, it's literally just a hashed,
Well, you want to do the one by Norotan Church with the flashing lights if you're going to do it
Right.
there, right?
right?
But
And
by,
if I may, just from my perspective and the conversations that I've had and the feedback I've received from neighbors, we don't want to make the determination of what we're proposing. We would like to work with you as concerned community
Right.
members regarding this issue for pedestrians to be able to cross. And from there, whatever it's determined would be the ideal thing, we would want to have, obviously, to take into consideration the safety. I completely agree. I think everyone I've talked to would prefer light because we are very
Yeah.
concerned that people will just blow through and hit our kids in the crosswalk.
Correct.
Right, so.
That's where I was headed.
People are pretty passionate about this, and I don't know what it would take, but, writing letters, we would love to work with you and have this issue be pushed forward. I do think even a flashing light, if that was something that came as a suggestion, I think we would be open to that. Anything is better than the current situation. I see people running across every day, multiple times a day.
I think we-
Sometimes at the Y, sometimes at.
I think we get the issue. I think where we're struggling is that we probably have, to Chief's point, we can put the request in, right, but it's not up to us, right? This is a
Right.
state issue, and I think, I'm almost positive during P and Z, we had put that request in at some point between Hollow Tree and Nearwater to have one.
this may have been in concert with the numerous expansions of
Of
the
the Y,
YMCA.
that's what I
was
The
thinking.
topics
It
came up.
was, and the state didn't go for it, but
Well, we can go back.
Well,
and
let's at
research
least,
that.
let's do a dive into the history.
A couple things here that's absolute certainty for me. If this, well, first and foremost, and I don't like to throw anyone under the bus, but the state DOT moves at glacial speed. We are waiting on pedestrian safety enhancements that they have said that they would do for at least 3.5 or 4 years on US 1 that are not yet done, including exclusive pedestrian phase at Post Road and Norotan and Hecker Avenue here for the library, and also Post Road and Norotan Avenue by St. John's Church. They were supposed to be getting upgraded pedestrian amenities at both of those locations, which reminds me again to try to light the fire under the DOT to get an update there. This commission, I can speak for the administrators here too, we're very passionate about pedestrian safety. I requested what's called a hawk crosswalk system here in front of the library or by Shake Shack, where it actually is kind of like a railroad crossing where the lights start to flash yellow and then they flash to red to get people. That was dismissed out of hand from the state DOT. They were just not going to fund that. They probably would fund it. No, they probably would allow it if the town funded it. But again, that's a very, very expensive roadway treatment. So I think what we do is we ask the state DOT to give us what records they might have as far as any crosswalk proposal there in that stretch. From the perspective of crosswalk safety nationally, the number really is about 9 users per hour is what traffic engineers are looking at. Do you have 9 users an hour on average during times of daylight, right? Or not in the middle of the night, but clearly the rest of the time. I'm not averse to trying to get some kind of pedestrian upgrade.
But we
in
don't
that quote.
we don't come close to meeting 9 users per hour there.
Probably not, but that's not the absolute go, no-go, but that's just something they take into consideration. Here you have, as the folks here said now, we have perhaps, people with needs that may need an additional time to cross the road, or certainly something that I think we
Yeah,
can
we
look
can look
at.
at.
Neuron Heights development, I think that was a really good point to bring up. You may have more foot traffic going up that way, joggers, whatever it may be, in the morning for coffee, commuters as well. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, so it's become more, I know it started.
That's a pretty
with me
long
asking
walk,
the
though,
question
for a
and a
commuter to
YMCA
walk all
question,
that
but
way.
I think it's
They're not walking.
a bigger community-wide issue.
I definitely see the need. My only concern is if you have a child out there or someone who's elderly, to the chief's point, it takes a little more time to cross the road. Having that full sense of security, I hit the button, all the cars are going to stop. You really need to be trained, have the cars stop and then cross, as opposed to just hit the
So
button.
we
walk.
we should
It
build
is-
an education piece around any kind of crosswalk there if we were to to do
It's a
something
long
like that.
stretch.
So-
You know, we recently had a change in statute as far as pedestrian right-of-way. It used to be that you had to be significantly into the crosswalk, that the car was required to yield to you. That's been changed somewhat. Now, if you're, in theory, again, if everyone was a
Theory.
perfect driver, if you saw someone wanting to cross, you are now supposed to stop. And the statute goes on to say, if you raise your arm, if you put out your leg, or raise an umbrella, this is all like in the statute, the car is supposed to stop. But we know what driver behavior is.
Yeah, but that's the
We know
problem.
what reality is as well, right?
We're
And
very-
again, the commission has heard me say, and I'll say it again for folks maybe watching on TV, a crosswalk is, under statute, is assumed that every intersection, not every, but the intersections that we're talking about here, like Gardner Street, there is a crosswalk by statute there. So if you're crossing there, the car is supposed to yield to you. But again, we deal in realities of what we see out on that.
It's very interesting.
So, at the end of the day, I would not be supportive of any crosswalk in that stretch without at least a rapid rectangular flashing beacon system like we have by Hindley School.
Yeah, and that's what I had pictured in my mind, that in between that block, that crosswalk right there with the flashing lights, that would have to, if we were talking just about a crosswalk, that's the kind of crosswalk I think would be most of it.
Anything less than that, and I think you've created danger, where, again, if we're in the business of public safety, giving somebody a false sense of security on that road is destined for not a happy outcome, I'm afraid. All right, well, we
And then let us
appreciate,
know what we.
yeah, no, we appreciate, A, your time in coming here, and as a start, let us dive into.
Can I jump in on
Yeah,
one
you
more
go.
thing? Just for point of clarification, to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing here. No school student should be crossing the street to get on a bus.
No,
No.
we're not.
We
talking
took
about
care of that issue
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. I want to make sure we haven't backslid where that's maybe not the
That is-
standard anymore.
No, that is
Okay.
not,
No,
that
but
is not the issue.
So we have staff who either take the train or take the
Okay.
bus. So they're walking down from Norwood Run either on Gardner or on Hollow Tree from the Nerone Hicks train station. And again, they're crossing both directions. And then the ableist interns, or some interns who have now graduated from their internship and have now been employed by the Y, take the bus. And they are crossing the street one direction, right? Because regardless of whether they're coming from north or south, when they get off at the bus stop, they have to go the other way to get back. So they do have to cross one direction.
And there is a transit bus stop on either side, right in front of, just north of the parking lot of the YMCA.
Yes, that's a good point, because I was thinking, do we let the kids?
No, it's a public transport.
So you're saying,
So whether it's the train or the bus,
okay,
and of course.
all right, you were saying, yes, student bus stops, I agree, that's a good clarification.
I also have letters from our CEO and the CEO of the A-List program. Yes.
All
Thank you.
all helpful. All right, I think we have enough to move the ball forward, at least to the next step. Okay.
Thank
New
you.
business.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Sorry. So, just so that we understand sort of what is the procedure for follow-up, how will, because we have a lot of interested community members who are eager to be supportive of whatever comes, how should we?
Well, we,
Is
Continue to-
Captain Adema the point person, or?
Captain Adem is our point person here.
You can-
We will, I would think by our next meeting, we should be able to have some kind of update
Okay.
to discuss at the next police commission meeting.
But if you
Do we want to
communicate,
continue to get some data for this? Would that be helpful, not helpful?
I think anything you can bring to the table would be great.
If the state ever considered installing a crosswalk anywhere on US 1, they would have people out there to do formal counts.
Okay.
But if we can give them some kind of idea to begin with,
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Thanks.
thank you kindly.
Okay. Sergeant Cohesi promotion ceremony, March 29th.
Yeah, so, we had a good turnout. You probably saw the picture. Both of his sons were dressed in full police uniforms to pin his badge on him.
That's great.
So, congratulations to Pat. That was another step forward for the Darien Police Department.
Excellent. Tokenie constables, any update?
Yep. Tokenie constables have to be reappointed every, I think, 2 years. So I have paperwork here for the commission to sign, endorsing that reappointment occur.
Do we need to do anything official besides me signing this letter?
I think the concurrence letter from the commission chair will suffice as support of the commission for reappointment for
Excellent.
constables.
Okay. State of Connecticut First Responder Certificate of Operation issued?
I think this is maybe, you have that in your packet
I
as
do.
well. So as the commission well knows, the way that Post 53 can operate here in the town of Darien, Commissioner Cunningham especially, we are the first responders for emergency medical. So we are back certified again for the next year as the first responder level of service for the town of Darien, in the Department of Public Health.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Request for alarm funds?
Yeah, several years ago, I think maybe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had asked the commission to consider getting a backdrop for like press conferences or events, maybe even such as this. As you can see, we're trying to upgrade our facilities in here.
Fancy.
The ones that I've seen now in Fairfield and several other communities are larger and they are very nice. So I would request that we earmark $2,000 from the alarm fund to purchase the backdrop for doing events, press conferences.
Didn't say Darien Police, I mean, there's a...
Yeah, as far as
has
the
a
design
shield.
goes, you've probably seen them. It says Darien Police, or it says Fairfield, and then there's a patch, and then maybe your logo, and it repeats it throughout the, I mean, the exact design is still to be determined,
Okay.
but the one that originally really was, well, maybe about the size of this screen, a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna go a little bit bigger, so I think that would be a good expenditure to get. It's kind of a lifetime type thing, you know, it'll probably
I'm
last
surprised we don't
100
have one.
Well, I'm surprised we don't have one either, and we've been working towards it for.
All right. Well, I will,
Do you have everything you need for the flag while we're on that issue?
For the flag?
For the flag, just while we're on this issue? Any
The-
posts and everything, we're all set with that?
Yeah, that was on back order, but the poll came, so
All right.
we have it on temporarily. We have to figure out how to permanently affix it, but that's in the commissioners' conference room.
excellent. All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve alarm funds up to $2,000 for a Darien Police Department backdrop utilized for events, conferences, and anything else.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Aye. Excellent. Officer Joseph Cusano, NORCOM, to discuss radio encryption.
Since,
You guys want Cedar Point? I'm more than happy just to speak to you.
You can speak to us and then, well, either way, you're in charge.
Do this way. I'll present from here and. just
Excellent.
speak to you. It's not, there's nothing really visual.
Okay.
Visually appealing that you really need. Just let me see. I actually had a rep on, he was waiting to jump in a Zoom meeting just to kind of answer anyone's
Okay.
questions.
Chloe's doing that. You want to do the next one, or we should wait?
We should do the last two.
Let's quickly do the last two, and then Joe will save you. Receipt of a $5,000 gift from a Darien resident to the Police Department gift fund.
so a resident, I believe a couple, who attended the Citizens Police Academy were very, very happy with the Citizen Police Academy to the point that they donated a $5,000 check to the Darien Police Department gift fund. I will send them a hearty thank you note. I would recommend to the commission, without reservation, that we accept the $5,000 gift to the gift fund with a multitude of thanks to the folks who came.
The Police Academy, that's, clearly a home run from all
Yeah,
aspects.
we haven't-
I mean, even without a $5,000 gift, we couldn't get better feedback, so.
We haven't done one in some time, which is why it was percolated
Oh.
at the top of my list, and I think we're gonna do another one. You've heard me say time and time again, quoting Cy Sims, and an educated consumer is our best customer. And the more that we can engage the public, to let them know why we do what we do, and sometimes even more importantly, why we can't do or don't do what they think we do, it's very important to get community buy-in and just for the community to see that we're just simply part of the community.
Excellent. Well, I need a motion to, I will move that we accept the $5,000 gift from the Darien resident to the Darien Police Department gift fund with huge, grateful, thankful. Second,
All the above. Second.
any other questions about it?
Very generous of them.
All those in favor? And then receipt of a $124,000 grant from the Darien Foundation for the marine electronics upgrades.
I will defer to the captain on this one. She kind of was involved in this. This was actually a surprise that it moved as fast as it did.
It was a surprise to all.
So I will, since she oversees technology, I will yield the floor to her.
So the Darien Marine boat every so often needs an upgrade in their electronics, not only to keep things safe, but the best technology for what we need. And the Darien Foundation came to us and asked if we had any matters that were pressing that we wanted to discuss with them. And we had brought up the electronics for the Marine Division, and they were happy to assist. And so we got all the upgrades for the electronics on the boat. We have updated radios, now portable radios that officers, while on duty that may not be on the boat, will get transmissions from Coast Guard and other neighboring towns as far as marine calls, which will help with responding times, and a new laptop for the boat.
Is it infrared?
The
Yeah,
forward-facing
yeah.
infrared technology makes that vessel once again, state-of-the-art. A lot of folks in Darien enjoy boating. A lot of folks have never been out on Long Island Sound in some of the conditions that we've been out on Long Island Sound with. And that's where really having state-of-the-art equipment is so important. I have been out there on Long Island Sound on the Marine Division where you could not see the bow or the stern while you were standing at the helm of the boat. That's how socked in it gets sometimes. Those are the kind of things that, again, makes us a cut above.
And we've had some calls. I mean,
The generosity of the Darien Foundation,
Yeah.
I think, is without peer when it comes to
Amazing.
their support of not just the Darien Police Department, but the town of Darien as a whole. This is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a partnership, providing the best service to our residents, and I think this is, once again, a fine example of that.
I think it moved so quickly. We were working between their meetings, and due to the fact that the boat is ready to be launched pretty soon, we wanted to try and get ahead of it, and we were able to do that, which was a lot from our Sergeant Palmieri. He got the paperwork going pretty fast, and we were able to make the meeting in time, and they approved it, so looks like we're on track for hopefully sometime in May.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Sergeant Palmieri and Officers Arrett and Martin, on real short notice, were able to put something together and present for them, I think Monday night, right?
So I would recommend to the Police Commission that they graciously accept the donation of $124,000. This is a multi-step process. Right? Once the commission accepts, it does have to move on to other boards, ultimately the RTM, to accept a generous donation of this type. I don't envision we'll get any pushback from any board or commission on the acceptance of $124,000 from the Darien Foundation, so we will.
again, very grateful to the Darien Foundation, and I urge, I'm sure they have a PR group or whatever, but I urge us to take the lead on providing them photos, or if anyone wants to go for a ride on the Marine Division, see it in action. But I recommend that we gratefully accept $124,000 grant from the Darien Foundation for marine electronic and technology upgrades.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Excellent. Now,
Right.
you're back on.
So, sake of time, just to introduce myself, I'm Joe, member here at the Darien Police Department, newly appointed to, in charge of taking care of our radios and making sure everything is good. I helped Captain Pandema here with the new radios for our Marine Division. So this is going to be a proposal for why the Darien Police should move to an encrypted radio. I did have a 3-minute video on what encryption is. I know that can be kind of cumbersome to really understand, but for sake of time, I can just clearly, I can clear it up for you. So what we're proposing is called ADP, and that's Advanced Digital Privacy. So essentially, it's like a password protected radio. So only those who have a password would be able to hear the transmissions on our radios.
That's password.
I did have a 3-minute video, but we'll bypass that. So why we should encrypt? Why do any agencies encrypt? For those who may not be aware, all federal agencies encrypt their radios, and they encrypt them at the highest levels. It's almost like computer memory, if you think of it that way. They come in levels, so you have a 128-piece encryption, and then you could have a 256-piece encryption, and that's where all federal agencies are required to have their transmission encrypted. I'm not saying that's why municipal police should be doing that. It's just for those who may not have known, does anybody encrypt? And the answer to that is yes. One of the main purposes I'm proposing it is for officer safety. We'll get into why. I know that's a broad sweeping term, but it's mainly just for the safety of our patrol officers and really anybody transmitting anything over the radio. So some examples, this is on a national scale, and I'll get down to some local incidents that have occurred in the recent past that we've kind of been keeping track of. So an incident where civil protesters, they were using scanner apps. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that. So any smartphone can download a scanner. I can go on my phone right now, download a scanner, and hear every police transmission coming through here. And I can go through any town that's not encrypted and hear their transmissions right from my cell phone. It's a scary thought, and I'm not saying that the only time that occurs that it's people are being malevolent and have some other ulterior motives. Most people do it for the right reasons, but we'll get back to that. But anyways, the civil protesters were using scanner apps to intercept police transmissions so they could facilitate looting, arson, and assaults on responding law enforcement. So again, it's almost like these ambush type things we hear of, the worst case scenarios. I'm not going to just unfairly present worst case scenarios. I'll present other things as well. But those are things that we're trying to avoid from ever even having the opportunity to occur. So non-encrypted transmissions were intercepted by citizens to gather information on tactical operations and location of law enforcement units. That's a separate incident. And the third one is private information is being intercepted, such as driver license numbers, birth dates, and that opens up the opportunity for identity theft. We've now corrected that. We don't do that any further, transmit that information over the air. And it's really hard to gauge whether something has ever occurred from that. But again, these are just things that we're just trying to avoid from ever occurring in the future through encryption. I have a few more incidents. I don't want to get really bogged down on the national level, but there was something during a Super Bowl where a local hacker was distributing law enforcement's communication plans and posted them publicly on like a group forum where people were just able to just click in and hear everything that law enforcement was doing during the Super Bowl, maybe to run across the field, whatever they may have. But again, it just opens up a window for those who do want to do, terrible acts to law enforcement. They have the opportunity to do so. So the equipment we have now is actually really good equipment. We have the APX 6000 LI radios. It's a digital radio, and they already have what I was proposing in the first place, this 80 ADP. A rep from Norcom, who's actually supposed to zoom in, but some technical difficulties there. But any questions you may have after this presentation, you can give to me, and I'd be happy to give to him if I don't answer anything he may have from this. Our radios are equipped for this, so there's no cost. So the radios we have are portables. We have our portables, we have our in-car radios, and we have the consoles in our dispatch center, the 3 consoles. All of those radios are already equipped with the software you need to run the 8080p. So there's no cost. Norcom just has to come here and change what's called a template. So I lied, I do have some visuals, but I can easily explain that to you. I don't know if anyone has a radio on them, but no big deal. So our portable radios, they have this little button, and it switches to zones, A, B, and C. If we were to go to be encrypted, we would just switch to zone C. And then now, every transmission we make, the only people can hear it are the people that are in that zone. So for instance, if
Are you talking about all communications would be
Yes.
encrypted? Everything?
everything,
Okay,
Full-time.
full-time.
full-time,
Not switching over based on the.
that's correct. And so the example I'm going to present to you is why we would do that. So if we put out a mandate, everything goes through, everyone switches their radios over to the proper channel, everyone is encrypted. If somebody switches off and goes into a different zone, they will be the only person not hearing any further transmissions. So that causes a huge issue if we toggle between unencrypted, which is
Right.
usually formally called clear transmissions. But if you toggle between those and encrypted transmissions, it can cause a serious issue because they're not going to, it's like being on the wrong radio channel, you're not going to hear anything. And it kind of defeats the whole purpose of what we're.
Well, it's
of what
dangerous,
we're
yeah.
doing.
That's-
Another important point, so our radios have several different radio channels. One of the radio channels is our town-wide channel. It's not frequently used. CMed is the only person I know that uses that on some type of frequent basis. That will be in the encrypted zone, and it will be unencrypted. I know if this gets confusing, just I'll try to explain it a different way. When you switch to town-wide, you can make an unencrypted transmission, and that way, say, for instance, we're in some type of critical incident, everyone needs to hear the message that's going through, fire, EMS, anyone who's responding to the scene, they can switch to town-wide, it would be heard by all. But those who are still in the encrypted zone will not hear that transmission, so just want to be clear.
So if you're an officer, Joe, and you for some reason need to switch over to townwide, you'd have to do 2 things. You'd have to switch to zone A, and you'd have to change the channel, correct?
No, just go to town-wide in that zone. But I would first relay to our communication center, we need everyone to switch to town-wide. All responding units need to hear the next message, something in that format. So there's some type of relay, almost essentially like when we used to do radio checks for the town-wide channel
Sure.
itself, and have every communications would make sure that dispatch went out. So everyone heard it. We didn't have this lapse where people weren't switching over and everyone did a roll call, so you knew they were on the correct channel.
How often have you done that historically or anticipate doing it? In what situation, like a hurricane maybe, a natural disaster, or?
We've never had to. We've
Never had to.
So that's a really good question, and I would have gotten to it eventually in the PowerPoint, but yes, there's been no incident that I know of personally, and maybe chief or the captains can comment on, where a patrol officer or even a supervisor had to communicate directly through their portable radio to fire or EMS. And I don't want to jump around too much, but our communication center can do that. So if the patrolman says, radio, can you please inform fire, or can you please inform EMS of something, they can either directly transmit to them, call them on their landline, and have their communication dispatch, but I'm just opening up this tangled web of how we do communications. That is how we've done it in the past, and that's how we would still continue to do it.
But the desk has the ability downstairs to transmit over fire and EMS.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yes.
so if you were in a car and say, hey, I need engine 4 to go up the road, right? The desk can go direct on the fire channel, right?
That is correct.
Would you suggest this makes you more efficient as well on patrol, because then you can communicate things like driver's license, birth dates, other privacy sort of related matters?
Yes, and those are, yeah, it's a really good question. That's further on our PowerPoint, but yes, we've had a few incidents recently where the temporary policy we have in place, which, I mean, maybe be permanent, but is to call, our communication center. So our patrolman will request some type of criminal history. Communications will run that information and then tell the patrolman to call in. The specific incident I'm referring to is the patrolman was in a place where there was no cell phone service, and they were dealing with an emotionally disturbed person. So now time becomes a factor, and that becomes an officer safety issue. So that's a good incident, and it is only one, but it is a good incident that why we be encrypted, you can scratch all the calling in and the loss of time and those, rapidly evolving situations. Okay, well, we could eliminate some of my slides here, but I think I've gone over a lot of that information. But the process, like I said, it's free of charge. It is of no charge to us. There's nothing you need to change. They would only just do that template I spoke about.
So you said,
The template has no charge.
The template has no charge.
I mean, all federal is encrypted, our people are other municipalities? I mean, where are we on the curve of going to encryption?
That's a good question. So every agency that surrounds us is encrypted other than New Canaan.
So us and New Canaan are not.
Yeah, I don't quote me, but I think New Canaan may be on their own. The other agencies that surround us are on the state system that's encrypted that I know of, but you can also do like personal encryption through the town, but that is very costly. But what we have already is of no cost.
Joe, you can hear Norwalk police on the police scanner.
On a public police scanner. So Norwalk Police, I believe they only encrypt one of their channels. So they may have a public channel. So there's this term that most people would describe, but it's one of those terms that I just think it's too much, but it's called interoperability. And it's essentially like what we were talking about. Like if patrol could talk to fire, fire could talk to patrol. It's one of those things that are the main concerns if we were to ever have a critical incident. Do we have policies in place? Do we go to this channel? What do we operate on? Those are issues that would have to be cemented before there be any type of encryption. It would have to be clear cut. This is what we do. This is how fire would know where they need to go. This is where EMS knows where they need to go. But that's just something to consider. Just bear with me, we're skipping over a lot that I want to answer. I personally responded to and it's just a local incident. I personally responded to a call, a domestic violence incident. This was shortly after the tragedy that happened in Bristol. And when I arrived and I entered the home and I made a transmission, I could hear it back up. Meaning the person in that house had a scanner or radio and could hear my transmissions. And this is on, arguably the most dangerous call types we respond to. And that was recent. That was just a recent incident. And that person, I don't want to name anybody, but they did volunteer at a local fire department. So it's another reason where I think no one has, no one is going into this with wanting to do negative or harm to anybody, but it's something that I think opens up a window that I don't think should ever be opened up, especially with the incidents I'm describing. And then there was another incident that occurred where an Uber driver was attacked, and someone acting in good faith, again, I think it was a volunteer firefighter, acting in good faith, responded and damaged critical evidence. And he heard that transmission because we have clear transmissions, we have unencrypted transmissions. I'm not trying to make an attack on any department. I have nothing but respect for anybody who volunteers for fire or for EMS or any of those agencies. I just think even in good faith, these types of things can happen and have a bad effect. Fortunately, that we were still able to find the person who was responsible, but those are things that can happen, and this is why I'm presenting right now in front of you. There's another issue. It's the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with. Encrypted messages are only, encrypted messages are still FOIable. So I think a lot of the argument against any municipal police going encrypted is that it's less transparent. But that's not the case. You can still FOI any transmissions you like, or all transmissions. So it doesn't jeopardize the professionalism that police would still have over the air. It would just free up using plain language and being able to be like, hey, Mike, can you please send me the criminal history? Or whatever may happen. But so that's that. I don't know if there's any questions about FOI.
Joe, I have two questions, but just in general, is that all right?
Please.
So you're saying that every piece of mobile and or portable radio equipment that the Darien Police owns today, right now, the boat, every single car, every single portable that you have, the ambulance that's in the garage there, has the ability, without upgrading, adding, the ability to capture encryption. All you need to do is make a change on the computer.
Yes, and this is why I was hoping my Norcom rep would be here as well. We only have, again, I did an audit of all the police equipment we have. The ambulance, no, that radio is not going to hear any transmission. Maybe something on a truck passing by. We would need to upgrade a couple of our in-car radios, I believe, because they are old models and they're out of warranty and need to be upgraded regardless. But yes, all portables, all the equipment, I believe that your vehicles are newer. I checked the DB vehicles, the Marine unit, they're getting their new radio. Yes, they are all capable of doing this. There are only 2 in-car radios need to be replaced. And the approximate cost to update those in-car radios, and it's just a number off the top of my head, would be a couple $1,000.
And the other, I just want to be clear on this. If you go encrypted, the plan would not be to allow the other first responders to hear those encrypted messages.
That would be one of the things that occur if we go encrypted. Yes, fire and EMS would no longer hear police transmissions on channel 1 directly.
Is there any drawback to that?
So that's kind of going back to what I spoke to about interoperability. There's been no incident that I know of where EMS or fire had to directly contact police. So it's unfair for me to say that yes, that or no, that's not ever going to cause an issue. But if EMS or fire ever had to contact us, they would go through the same protocols we would now to contact them, which would be to go back to CMed and say, hey, can you have police come here? We need them. Because I think as of now, and Karen, maybe you could help me understand this, I believe EMS cannot directly key and talk to us. They can only hear us on like a scan.
I believe on the ambulance, so there's 2 portables and a mobile radio dedicated to each ambulance. I believe you can transmit on those.
Okay.
No other ones.
Okay.
So like if somebody was just on duty and had their own radio.
So I can give you.
But in practice, that's not happening.
That's not the way you do it anyway.
I can give you a wild example of something that I know has happened where there was nothing bad happened, so I'm explaining to you. So EMS responds into a house for a medical call that seems benign, and then it's no longer benign, and they need to get us, which we would be in there anyways with them, but if for whatever reason, law enforcement, they can't go into over there, which is their policy already, so I don't think it actually happened, but for whatever reason, if law enforcement wasn't aware of where EMS was and they needed to directly key to us, On their portable, they cannot do that. They still have to go to CMed and do this time thing. But like I said, there's current policies in place that law enforcement is always with EMS, or should always be with EMS during that, in someone's residence or one of the, elderly assisted living. So.
Joe, I think you gave a very clear presentation and the rationale behind it. Your colleagues are in agreement, I presume?
Yeah, if I did a survey, I think it would be, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I just want to go over, and I don't want to drag this on anymore, but I have a few things where I just wanted to go over. If there's any questions on any of these topics, we can discuss, and if you have questions that you maybe want me to relate to one of the reps at Norcom, I'd be happy to do that. So we talked about cost. There's no cost to us, other than if we had to update radios that are
And just me,
under warranty.
I believe in the budget for this coming year, there were radios we put in to upgrade anyway.
Yes.
So
Those were-
they're in the budget to be upgraded anyway, because we rotate them out. When the ones get
Right.
old, you rotate out and get the newer version, so.
New Marine ones too, you think? Or?
Well, those are already taken care of.
All right.
But the ones he's talking
No, I
about.
mean, they're
are the
compatible, I'm
ones-
saying.
So
that this-
cost is not the binding constraint
They
here.
would be compatible with
The new radios that we're getting from the Marine Division are, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
those are like top, those
Yeah.
are beyond, patrol. Yeah, those are really good radios. So cost-free, interoperability, in my opinion, would be unaffected with our current policies the way they stand. The purpose we talked about, there's the safety, the legality as far as like identity theft, the ability to have plain talk, and really the fundamental purpose is real-time delivery. The real-time, it was demonstrated by that issue that occurred in Tokenique, and that was a one-off, but it is clearly an issue that can happen. We talked about the equipment, some questions you may not have had, but we can discuss is, we also have Tokenique and we have traffic agents. Okay, so most of the traffic agents, if not all of them, operate off of our older model radio. We have APX, the traffic agents use, it's called XTS. Those, as far as Norcom, I'm going to get back to, they've already told me that those are capable of having the same encryption. So it wouldn't interrupt traffic agents, and it wouldn't interrupt Tokenique constables who carry a mix of the two radios. And they have Tokenique has their own traffic budget, so if they had to buy new radios, that would be on them. But as it stands, per Norcom, those radios, even the older ones, can still operate on the encrypted channel. I highlighted the issues with the current structure. We talked about national, local incidents. We talked about FOIA requests, and then some other things that you may not know. I'll just go over quickly. Dispatch's current capabilities. They can directly communicate with a hotline, which is all the Fairfield agencies who want to transmit information quickly. It's something I didn't touch on. Our current policy is when there's a hotline transmission, communication proceeds first. Then they do a roll call through all staff working, all patrolmen working, and then they transmit the transmission. I would present that if we had an encrypted channel and we got a hotline transmission, that would just go right over. And there would be no loss of time, and our patrolmen would be able to act more swiftly. Just a recommendation. We could transmit to Transit directly, Norwalk, Fapern, which is another thing, the Blue Plan activation. Like I was explaining, the townwide channel in the encrypted zone is an unencrypted channel. Also, Fapern would be unencrypted. So anytime you go on Blue Plan, which I've personally done 2 or 3 times, there was a big radio issue because our radios weren't currently capable of going to Fapern. So I was out there in a critical incident, and they had no radio communication, so I know what that feels like. We now can switch to Fapern on our portables and still be in touch if we were to go through with the encryption, so it wouldn't interrupt Blue Plan activations either. We can contact all VFDs, like you asked, we can contact the fire marshal, EMS, townwide, DPW, all the schools, and DEMIS.
Yeah, Joe, I was going to ask you about the school SSO program is brand new, but it sounds like you already looked into that.
I tried to look into every angle here, but yes, I'm not clear on what radios SSOs are going to be. I think they're going to be on the school radio system. Is that correct?
No, they will have complete access to Darien Police Department frequencies. Yes.
And as long as they have access to our frequencies, then they can be on.
The general operation of SSO and radios is, that's a matter of school security that we don't discuss in public session, but they will have access to direct contact with the police department. Yes.
And we also can contact DEMAS, and then there's a dedicated ITAC channel, which we could all walk away from here and say we've learned something about radios that I would challenge you to try to forget immediately. But there's an ITAC channel it's actually was designed for if we had some type of critical incident, and I hate to even use this as an example, but if there's a 9/11 and all these agencies from all over states come, this ITAC channel was designed specifically for that cause, that all responding agencies from other states would be able to operate on that channel, but I don't even know how that would work without being a nightmare. You asked about agencies that are encrypted. At Greenwich, Stanford, Norwalk, Bridgeport, Weston, Wilton, Stratford, Newtown, and those are just the ones that are on state systems. I don't know if they're...
Let me just clarify on the state system, right? It's not a state radio system, it's a state radio backbone. They're their own individual radio systems that hang on the state infrastructure. It's kind of the portal, the pipeline, but they are their own radio systems.
That's correct. But that's all I have. So if you have any questions.
Joe, I got a couple of questions. I'm able to use Vapor and ITAC on my radio. Is it just my radio? That's what you program, my slot and stuff?
Yes.
I don't remember
You're
what chip
special.
did to mine. Also, I've used when you click over into Zone C before for encryption purposes, when we were doing surveillances and stuff, I found that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the quality of the transmissions were real tinny, almost talking like, you sound like you're talking into a can. And from what I understood, those transmissions weren't going through a repeater. They were, and headquarters would only hear like clicking and beeping when we would transmit. We could hear radio to radio, but only the radios that were on that Zone C and on the same channel together. So this upgrade with the template, does that fix all that?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, good question.
And that will go through the repeater.
That's correct.
You're not looking for any, I mean, we have time to think and ask other follow-up questions and all the rest.
This is something that needs to percolate a little
Yeah,
bit.
it needs to
you know,
percolate.
and I have to give kudos out to Chip Patone, who kind of handled our radio things here for well over 2 decades. And, Joe's taken the mantle and he's done a fine job, keeping us up to speed. Encryption is always a topic that if I was an attorney, I could argue both sides of the equation. But there are CJIS requirements, which is Criminal Justice Information System, and collect requirements that require us to not broadcast certain things. It is problematic when we want to say something quickly and you have a rapidly unfolding occurrence and you want to be able to talk plainly, and there's things that by statute, you're not supposed to say over the radio if it's not encrypted. So there's certainly utility to encryption. There's certainly officer safety aspects that are part of it. There's certainly compliance with statutory law that we have to do. On the flip side of the coin, we're not the secret police, right? We're not, we do like to have interoperability with our other emergency services. We're not trying to hide anything from any other emergency service. So it's a balancing act, and this is why here in 2023 we're still on the fulcrum, right? We haven't tilted it one way or the other, but I think it's a discussion that certainly we should continue to have and come to some conclusion.
Yes.
In the fairly near term.
Yeah. Thank you. That was excellent, and I'm sure we will have follow-up questions, and we will put it back on our agenda as we noodle it.
Just one thing I
Yeah.
remembered, and that sounds great. One thing I remembered I can discuss is I'm not sure if encryption has any effect on CALEA at all, but it was something I tried to look into, I couldn't find the answer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sure, a clear requirement is you have to be CJIS compliant. That would be
Interesting. All right.
If you ever,
It
Anything
was
you know,
great, Joe, thank you.
That was,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good job.
Well, thank you for your attention.
if you ever have trouble falling asleep and you want to read, CGIS requirement manual, I'll give you volume 1 and 2.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. We are special meeting, so we will not add anything to the agenda. We are going to go into executive session for hopefully no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and we will be taking a vote coming out of it. So for those of you who want to continue to listen, we shall return for a quick vote. But I will move into executive session. And we will.
We're going.
Okay, we have come back from executive session. We have one order of business. I would like to make a motion that we approve funds from the alarm fund for additional equipment for public building security and emergency response to critical incidents.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, we need to come up with our next meeting date, and then we are free to go. Today is the 4th.
Today is the 6th.
Oh, that's May. I was like, oh,
20th is no good.
jeez. There's my May calendar, there's my April calendar. Are we blowing through April?
I have April.
Oh, maybe I have one too. Ah, April, there you are.
The next scheduled date would be what, Rick? You're always good at this.
The 20th,
2 weeks from today.
which is the 20th.
We have training that day.
I believe the commission chair is also training on that day.
Oh, I am also in training on that day. Although the commission chair is not here for the next 2 weeks after that, so that's a little bit.
I'm not here on the
20th is out. 27th or 4th, and you just carry on without me.
So I'm not going to be, I'll be on the West Coast on the 27th.
20th. Two.
So I would say maybe the first week of May, or we can do the 19th if you guys wanted to.
May-
Fourth is good.
May 4th?
May 4th?
If not, I am here the 11th or the 18th. Would that be 1, 2, 3,
I'm
4,
good
5,
for
6?
it.
All right, so you guys, Kevin, hold down the fort.
Okay.
May 4th, 4 PM. Excellent.
Here's the one, see your packet.
All done?
I
Yep,
took it.
adjourned.